Hello, my fellow brothers and sisters from Africa and in Africa. I hope everyone is doing just fine and you guys are making sure that your lives go the way you want. You are making sure that nothing you do is being influenced by others. You're making sure that whatever you do is what you want for your life. Because, like I have told you time and time again, and I keep on telling you, it is your life and the way you live it will depend on you. Whatever you want from your life is going to be dependent upon you because no one has the right over your life. They have their own lives, so they can live it the way they want. You have the right to live your life the way you want. So don't let anyone pressure you into something that you do not want to do. Please be very, very conscious about this. So, my brothers and sisters, I bring you breaking news from Africa, and it's something that we all knew. It was just a matter of time for it to come to pass because the kind of quarreling between the Sahel Nations and ECOWAS has been something that everyone knew the two camps will not agree because ECOWAS, to the best of my knowledge, and in my own opinion, has become like a proxy of the Westerners. You cannot imagine that ECOWAS, that is supposed to be looking after Africans and Africa, will be siding against the Sahel nations. Yes, I understand that one of their core principles is not to accept coup d'etats, is not to support coup d'etats in Africa. That I understand. But they must also understand that the coup d'etats did not just happen in a vacuum. Something must have caused those military regimes to come to be. A country as rich as the Sahel nations are one of the poorest in Africa. With all their resources, with all their raw minerals, they still cannot go anywhere in terms of development. Coupled with the fact that insecurity has totally ruined the country. France came to the Sahel 10 years or 12 years ago, promising to bring back security to these countries. But after being there for 12 years, they are unable to bring back the security they promised. Instead, everything has just gotten worse. So why would you want them to be there? Why would you think that a coup d'etat is a bad thing when you have seen how those countries have been governed? Now, many of you will argue that they had elections and they had democracy. But ask yourself, have democracy in itself ever developed any country? Has democracy without good principles, without people who are willing to respect democracy, ever done anything for the people? If democracy and the elections were to be the solutions to problems in Africa, won't that be solved by now? Because many African countries will claim they have democracy. But when you look deeper, when you really have a closer look on the so-called democratic nations, you will come to realize that the so-called democracy is just on paper alone. But in practice, nothing as democracy is being practiced. Nothing. They are all authoritarian to the very, very core. Like I have said before, and let me just say one more time, I believe that the military belong in the barrack. I think that military men shouldn't get involved in politics. But when you have a situation like that of Mali, like that of Burkina Faso, like that of Niger, and many French-speaking countries in Africa, you would look for alternatives. You would hope that maybe, just maybe, a coup d'etat might be something that brings prosperity, development to the country. That the military regime might be better than the civilian ones. Maybe. We might, if you live in a country in Africa where you are suffering, where you have no hope for a better tomorrow, when you have no prospect for the future, when you wake up in the morning and have nothing to do, when you sleep in a place where there is no light, there's no electricity, there's no good drinking water, your mind will be open to other options. And the coup d'etat or a military junta might just be the solution to the problem. The three Sahel nations have decided to quit ECOWAS. They have decided to move away from the bloc because they have realized that ECOWAS is not really serving their agenda. And ECOWAS, instead of being for them, instead of making sure that this country can provide for their citizens, has instead put enough sanctions in place that have ruined the economy of these countries. So can you blame them? Three West African junta-led states quit ECOWAS regional bloc. Niamey, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, three West African states led by the military, said on Sunday they are immediately leaving the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, a regional economic bloc that has been urging them to return to democratic rule. The decision by the three, announced in a simultaneous joint statement on their national television channels, is a blow to the bloc's regional integration efforts after it suspended the three following the coup. So ECOWAS thought they could strong-arm these three Sahel nations, but they are finding it out now that what they thought is backfiring on them. The Sahel nations are like, okay, fine. Since you don't want us in your bloc, no problem. We can always go our separate ways. After all, what were we benefiting in the bloc? What were we? You know, some of these so-called bloc like CEMAC, ECOWAS, and there's one called, I think, the East African Bloc also, they are just there for names, you know. They don't really have any significant impact on policies, on development within these African countries. They really do not. Because if ECOWAS was that important, if ECOWAS was that connected, was that intertwined with these African nations, they would not quit so easily. They will not leave. But the reason they are quitting the bloc is because they have reevaluated everything and they've realized that staying in the bloc is of any consequence. Like, they don't benefit anything stay in the bloc, so it will be just best for them to leave the bloc altogether. And I will also come back to this point, like I have said before. This bloc is an African bloc. It is supposed to look out for Africans and Africa. We can never move ahead when we keep on going against each other. We should not allow outsiders pit us against each other. This seems to be happening in Africa like a lot. We Africans turn to fight ourselves more often than we fight the outsiders. This is something we should not be encouraging in our continent. Unity is strength. Let's continue with the article. The move could further weaken ECOWAS, which has struggled to contain a democratic retreat in the West African region. In response to the withdrawal, ECOWAS said it is yet to receive any formal notification about the withdrawal and declined further comment. The bloc had previously said it does not recognize the military-led government, vowing that coups would no longer be tolerated after the military takeovers in Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea, and an attempted coup in Guinea-Bissau. Since the coups and despite sanctions, negotiations, and threats of military intervention, the military leaders have failed to provide a clear timetable for a return to constitutional rule. Instead, they have hardened their rhetoric against the bloc and accused it of being influenced by external powers. The three have also cut military and other ties with former colonial master France and turned to Russia for security support. Let's talk about foreign influence, right? This is not a controversy. This is not. From the move that ECOWAS made, this clearly shows that they will be manipulated by outsiders. This clearly shows that Tinubu Bola Ahmed was being manipulated by outsiders, allegedly. Because since from day one, they were not interested in negotiations. Rather, they were interested in a military intervention in these countries. These countries wanted France out. We all can agree on the damage France has done to many French-speaking African countries. We can all agree on that. In as much as we complain about poor development in Africa, the French-speaking regions are the worst. And they have like a lot of resources. Like a lot. Take, for example, Niger. Niger has a lot of uranium. And this uranium is being harvested by France. France is using this mineral to power Paris and even sell some excess to Europe. But Niger cannot boast of constant electricity. What is really going on? What is really going on? If France really cared about the people in Niger, they would have told them, or they would have built one of these nuclear plants in Niger, because Niger has enough uranium to do that. They would have built it there. They would have created enough electricity. They would have even sold some to Niger's neighbor, like Nigeria, because Nigeria has a serious problem of electricity. They would have sold some to them to raise some revenue. Rather, Niger is buying 90% of their electricity from Nigeria. And I kid you not, Nigeria does not even have enough electricity to supply the people in Nigeria. In fact, blackout in Nigeria is the order of the day. It's the order of the day. So Nigeria is selling 90% of, is selling Niger 90% of their electrical consumption. But Nigeria does not even have enough to supply all Nigerians. My brother and sister, this is Africa for you. If you begin to examine the problem of Africa, you will grow mad. You will grow mad, my brothers and sisters. How can someone sell a neighbor 90% of their electricity while that same neighbor doesn't have enough to power their own country? Africa for you. Really, really Africa for you. So let me just say this one more time. Niger leaving the bloc is a good thing. Until ECOWAS come to their senses and realize that they are supposed to be fighting for Africa. They are supposed to be there for Africans. They are supposed to try their best to push out the French and the Europeans from Africa, from intruding, from getting themselves involved in our domestic politics. The bloc will keep on losing its members, losing its credibility. Before these three Sahel nations decided to quit the bloc, the bloc was just dying anyway, because people realized that the bloc is not really for Africa. It's like the AU. You would think those organizations are there to protect Africans and Africa, but you'll be shocked that when something happened in Africa, instead of them siding with Africa and Africans, they would be against Africa and Africans. How can we move ahead if we are so disunited? How can we move ahead if we cannot agree on certain things? How can we move ahead if we see a friend who has been abused, who has been tortured by an outsider, and the friend has decided to awaken from slumber and fight back? And then instead of us encouraging that friend, cheering that friend, even supporting that friend, we are now against the friend because the friend used means that we think we don't accept, or we think are so beyond us. Remember, that friend did not attack us, right? That friend did not invade us. The friend mainly said that I have realized that I have been taken advantage of for a very long time, and now is the time for me to fight for myself, protect myself. And then we are against the friend. Is that not madness? The same thing that ECOWAS is doing here. But they are licking their wounds. So to you guys out there, my brothers and sisters in Africa and from Africa, what is your take on this move by the Sahel nations to pull out from ECOWAS? Do you think that is great or not? Share your thoughts and opinions with us in the comment section below, because like always, we love hearing what you have to say. Please don't forget to like this video, share this video, subscribe to this channel, because that helps us a lot, and we shall forever be grateful to you. So thank you very much for doing just that. And like always, see you in the next one.